Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion on the two items which have been named. And the first one, I'll try to be very brief. I'll begin by following the trajectory of Minority Leader Senator Orengo, and begin by giving Kenyans a history of how many censures or how many cabinet secretaries or ministers have been censured in this country. In the history of this country, since independence, there have been 9 censure motions against, 2 against the president and 7 against cabinet secretaries. 2 of them successfully resulted in a resignation. One was way back in 1966 when the then Minister for Cooperative, Paul Ngei, was censured and he resigned. He remained outside office until 1966 when the president pardoned him and he came back. The second one is the current majority leader in the National Assembly, who was censured and he was forced out even after he resisted for a very long time because of questionable transaction in the transaction of the Grand Regency. Mr. Speaker, this House must now begin using the tool of censure. And even though censure does not necessarily mean resignation, I want to remind these cabinet secretaries who have turned out to be fugitives of accountability that this will remain in their record forever. And what this House needs to do is we need to begin sabotaging the work of these 2 cabinet secretaries. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, when I heard the Cabinet Secretary of Energy saying that he was invited on a matter that does not relate to him, I wondered what these cabinets, if they've ever gone to school. Because when you look at these 2 acts, which they fought so hard to pass them, and these 2 acts of parliament will haunt this nation forever. The Energy Act and the Petroleum Act. If you look at the Energy Act, and if you go to the Energy Act on the issue of UPRA, it talks about the composition of the membership of the board of UPRA. And I'll refer back to him just to correct Senator Cabinet Secretary Keter. That when you look at UPRA as an example, he fought so hard to take away UPRA from the Ministry of Petroleum to put it into energy. UPRA, if you look at UPRA, the functions of the authority is, number 2, is importation, refining, exportation, transportation, storage, and sale of petroleum and petroleum products, with the exception of crude oil. Mr. Speaker, when you go further and you look at the composition of the board of UPRA, you will find that the Cabinet Secretary of Energy is represented there. And UPRA, which is the body that on a regular basis, each 14th of every month, publishes new prices of petroleum, is the one who supervises it. It's in the Act. This is not me saying. So I want to invite this fugitive of accountability to go back and read the law. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the character of these 2 individuals, it makes me miss a time. And I want to remind them that there are times when we had very powerful cabinet secretaries, like Orengo, who sat in this very House of Parliament and were accountable to the people. They were asked questions. I long for that time. I was hoping that when I become the senator or a leader in this country, it will be a time when a cabinet secretary will be sitting there so that they can be able to account for people. Being called as a cabinet secretary, you must subscribe to the code of the Convention of Accountability, that when you're a cabinet secretary and you're invited to Parliament, you're not only accounting to the members of parliament here, but you are accounting to the public. These cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, have made it so difficult, not only for the public, but also to members of parliament to be able to access their offices. In fact, they are running those offices as if they are small kingdoms. Mr. Speaker, I said very clearly, and I want to repeat this, that these cabinet secretaries, these two characters, are fugitive of accountability, an embodiment of executive arrogance, and this must come to an end. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind them that we have seen very powerful people come down. And when you are up there, you have to be very careful not to allow pride to bring you down. Now, to the other issue, Mr. Speaker, because I see my time is ending. We have a very serious problem, and this is a problem that we are being invited as a House to look at. Why are we in this problem in the first place? Mr. Speaker, we're in this problem because of greed. That's issue number one. This government, or country of Kenya, now subscribe to the open tender system when it comes to the importation of oil or crude of petroleum product into this country. Mr. Speaker, what happens? And this is where we need to investigate. Because the big players now, like Total or this Shell, do not, actually for the last 2 years, have not imported any oil into this, any petroleum product into this country. And the reason being, what normally happens is this. Every so often, after every 2 months, in every 2 months, all oil marketers, they put in their, what you call their forecast demand to the Ministry of Petroleum. So when all of it is added up together, they are invited by the supply coordination desk to bid. And there is a standard, just like the way when you go to a bank and you borrow a loan, where there is a central bank rate. There is something called the Platts rate. And most of these businesses that are now importing oil into this country, or petroleum product into this country, normally bid Platt plus either $1 or $2, assuming it is $600 to be able to import a barrel. So they say 600, that's the Platt rate, which is internationally accepted. And then they add a dollar on top. But now what has been happening, because of corruption, because of interest, because no one can be able, there's no one who can be able to supply over 400 barrels or rather metric tons of petroleum into this country, it is divided into what they call K1, K2. So when you look at, for the last 2 years, the people who have been supplying or importing the oil marketers are small players, very small people. They did that, and this was the engineers of the corrupt people in the petroleum ministry to deny National Oil Corporation an opportunity to import. Because if National Oil Corporation was going out there to negotiate, either in Qatar, either in Libya, or either in Saudi Arabia, they would be able to actually even bring it a Platt less, maybe $2 minus, which will be able to help this country. But what is happening right now, Mr. Speaker, is that since NOC was denied the opportunity to import any oil, which is actually guaranteed by a legal notice, I think it was legal notice 96, that allowed them, that reserved 30% of all the petroleum import into this country into NOC. But because it was going to be more accountable than these small businesses and the people in the petroleum ministry would not get an opportunity to get kickbacks, they are making it very difficult, such that now these small players are the ones who are importing 100% of all the petroleum which is coming to this country. Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that our committee, and sometimes it is very embarrassing, because even though you have all this information, the more you ask for it, the more you are messing with big people in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that our committee will look into this so that we can stop this nonsense where we are destroying this economy. Mr. Speaker, what we need to do is to remember that as leaders, we should not be here if we cannot be able to defend the people who are on the ground. So for these two fugitives of accountability, Article 226, subsection 5 of the Constitution of Kenya will go after you. And forever, when you look for an opportunity, you can never be elected actually.